Dinghai Fusheng Records. Chapter 3. Fall of the City. The sound of battle cries from outside was drawing closer and closer, so Chen Xing could only hurry back to his room. Fireballs flooded the sky that whooshed as they flew into the city. It seemed that the Qin army really had broken into the city. Once the city's defenses break down, the army would engage in a large-scale massacre of the entire city. Chen Xing had witnessed such scenes of chaotic turmoil before. He had to think of a way to escape as soon as possible. Chen Xing went in and shook his newly appointed protector Xiangshu, who could neither move nor speak. Xiangshu had woken up a long time ago and merely stared at Chen Xing. "Chen Xing, I'll think of a way to take you out of the city first. Wait here." But those were superfluous words anyway, since Xiangshu couldn't move and could only be wrapped in a blanket. Chen Xing thought that he couldn't escape with Xiangshu on his back. He was about to leave to find a horse when he considered that marauders may rush in to rob the place and hack him to death. He carried Xiangshu off the bed, along with the blanket that he was wrapped up in, and stuffed him underneath the bed so that he wouldn't be discovered. "Don't worry," Chen Xing explained, "Upiter is part of my fate. Up until now, no matter what I encounter, I'm able to avert disaster." He then went out to search for a horse. Chen Xing left the backyard. The stables were empty, all the war horses had been taken, so he had to go outside to look for one. The streets were full of civilians who had been scorched. Horses and soldiers wreaked havoc everywhere. The Jin and Qin armies were completely absorbed in their fight against each other. Oil vats were constantly thrown into the city from the outside, igniting everything they hit into flames. "Smells so good." Chen Xing's stomach actually began to grumble when he smelled the burnt meat. He couldn't find a horse, yet he managed to find a wheelbarrow. "If it's a wheelbarrow, then so be it." Chen Xing propped the wheelbarrow up in the backyard, but wasn't able to push it through, so he had to piggyback Xiangshu out first. He ran back to the room and dragged Xiangshu out from under the bed. Suddenly, he heard the door to the governor's manor get kicked open with a loud bang, followed by Qin troops rushing in. Inspiration struck Chen Xing. He immediately stuffed Xiangshu back under the bed, overturned the shelves in the room, and threw the pillows and clothes haphazardly across the floor. Then he pulled the curtain down, threw it onto the beam and tied a knot. He dragged a chair over to stand on it, extended both arms through the noose, allowing it to cut into his underarms, and kicked the chair away. As soon as the chair fell onto the floor, two Qin troops rushed in. Chen Xing was suspended from the beam, his eyes wide open as he stared at the soldiers unblinkingly. It was pitch dark, so the soldiers weren't able to discern where the rope was tied to. They were only able to perceive that someone had hung himself. They cursed their bad luck, looked all around them and surmised that this place had already been looted, then kicked the table over and left. Once the Qin troops left, Chen Xing hurried down and dragged Xiangshu out. However, just halfway through dragging him away, another group of Qin soldiers rushed in from the backyard again. So Chen Xing could only hang himself in a hurry again. The second group of soldiers rushed in, looked around them, then left as well. "Xiangshu." Chen Xing hung himself for approximately the time taken to drink a cup of tea, confirmed that no one else was coming again, then quickly untied the knot and came down. He carried Xiangshu on his shoulder and ran towards the backyard as he gasped for breath. The wheelbarrow was gone, but a war horse had appeared out of nowhere. It looked like a Qin horse, and there was even the corpse of a Qin soldier impaled by an arrow hanging from the stirrup. "This is great." Chen Xing put Xiangshu on the horse and said, "We'll definitely be able to escape now." However, Chen Xing forgot one thing: he was lucky, but Xiangshu's luck was just average. After Chen Xing got on the horse, he rushed all the way out of an alley with Xiangshu, who was still wrapped in a blanket. When he reached a side street, he saw flaming arrows and fire grenades everywhere, as if heaven had overturned a basin of fire. Xiangyang city had instantly transformed into a fiery purgatory. As the war horse neighed, it jolted violently while galloping. As he jerked back and forth on the horse, Chen Xing turned around to say something to Xiangshu when he suddenly realized that he was gone. You! Chen Xing immediately reined in the horse and said, "Crap!" He fell on the way. Chen Xing turned the horse around and hurried back along the road to find him. At the junction where an alley and the main street intersected, Xiangshu was laying flat on the ground. Half the blanket had come loose when he fell. Fortunately, he was found. Chen Xing decided he had to tie him onto the horse. He found a rope that just so happened to be in the saddle. Qin soldier saddles were well equipped with necessities. Chen Xing wrapped Xiangshu up properly with a blanket on the main street, then tied him up with a rope. He struggled to put him back on the horse and secured him rigidly in place with the rope. When he tied Xiangshu onto the horse, a group of Jin soldiers rushed over while urging their horses and shouted, "What are you doing? Abducting a civilian woman? He's a man." Chen Xing said quickly, "My father has been half paralyzed for many years." Then he quickly grabbed and pulled Xiangshu's hair up for them to see. The Jin soldiers were about to knock their bows and shoot him, but laid down their arrows when they saw that it was a man. He shouted, "Run to the southeast side. Don't head north. The governor's manor has been seized. The north side is overrun with Qin soldiers." Chen Xing said, "Be careful." The Jin soldiers left. Chen Xing was worried that Xiangshu would fall down again, so he tied him up very tightly with the rope. He looped 2 rounds around the horse with the rope and tied a dead knot. Now he was certain that Xiangshu wouldn't fall off again. He wiped his sweat off, and was about to mount the horse when a stray arrow flew horizontally across from nowhere and lodged itself into the horse's butt. The war horse instantaneously let out a prolonged whinny, its 4 legs kicked off the ground madly as it rushed back to the north side. "Ai! Ai! Come back!" Chen Xing quickly gave chase, but the war horse galloped with Xiangshu on its back and instantly vanished into the sea of fire without leaving a trace. Chen Xing looked all around him. The Jin troops incessantly rushed toward the north of the city, advancing in full strength as they engaged in a fierce battle with the Qin army. Everyone was driven mad with bloodlust by all the killing they had done. However, they were fortunate that Chen Xing had briefly tormented them earlier at dusk. Although they had dispersed separately, they all still remained awake afterward. Otherwise, those in the city wouldn't have responded so quickly when the Qin army attacked the city. No matter if one was a soldier or a civilian, young or old, they all knew that once Xiangyang fell, the city would be met with a massacre. There would be no survivors then, so each and every one of them now fought with everything they had and tenaciously resisted the siege. Chen Xian ran almost an entire mile along the main road. Conflagrations raged everywhere, houses on both sides of the road were all burning, and corpses littered the side of the streets. "Where's the horse?" Chen Xing shouted angrily, "Where did it go? Get back here." Dawn was starting to break, it was an overcast day today. Once the city started burning, black smoke blotted out the sky. Chen Xing choked so much that he couldn't stop coughing and shedding tears. He dashed across the Cheval de Frise on a long street and had already reached the front line of the war between the Qin and Jin troops. He was immediately discovered by a cavalryman, who rushed swiftly towards Chen Xing on horseback, and swung his sword down. Chen Xing immediately shouted and crouched down while covering his head. The cavalryman missed, and just as he looked back in doubt, his horse continued to gallop forward and rammed him into a clothesline that was strung up high outside a house at high speed. The cavalryman was immediately dragged down, landing headfirst as he hit the ground. Blood started streaming out of his 7 orifices, and his body convulsed uncontrollably. "That's great," Chen Xing thought. He ran over and was just about to take that person's weapon when the sound of hooves striking the ground traveled from behind them. Chen Xing promptly lay down on the spot and squeezed under the dead cavalryman. After the Qin cavalry entered, they fought over the stronghold in Xiangyang city and were prepared to start a battle on the streets with the Jin troops under Liang's whose governor, Zhu Su. No one noticed Chen Xing. Another wave of Qin troops passed by. Chen Xing knew that if he went around searching for Xiangshu with his current appearance, he would just be offering his head to the enemy. He dragged the cavalryman's corpse into a house and stripped him of his armor and underclothes to change into. At that time, the north side was experiencing the War of the Eight Princes. After the remnants of the Jin court fled south, Lu Kong's Han, Shi Li's Zhao, Xianbei Murong's Yan, and even Ran Min's Wei, and now Fujian's Qin all took turns taking the stage after the previous performers' departure. They each founded their own countries one after another, and the blood of the Hu and Han people mixed, which led to the inclusion of many Han people amongst the numbers of the Qin army. Chen Xing didn't seem particularly conspicuous after changing into a set of Qin soldier armor, except for how the helmet and armor appeared a little oversized. Chen Xing hastily tied the band of his helmet and ran towards the north in complete exhaustion. While he ran, he searched for abandoned war horses and kept an eye out for Xiangshu's whereabouts. As he darted across the Xiaoming platform in the center of the city, he was suddenly stopped by a commander of the Qin army. "Wei!" The commander of the Qin army shouted, "Which group are you from?" "Me." Chen Xing asked, "Are you talking to me?" Chen Xing spoke in Ya officialese, so the commander thought he was a guard who was directly under the command of Chang'an. He shouted, "What are you being all flustered for? Head northwest." "I was about to head over." Chen Xing said, "Give me a horse." "There's none." The commander shoved a shield into Chen Xing's hands, so Chen Xing had to hold it. The commander pushed him one more time and shouted, "After you pass by Xiaoming platform, head west and escort the canister chariot. The entire Jin army has been dispatched. Push the chariot to the drum tower. Be careful." So Chen Xing had to quickly catch up with a huge chariot in front of him. Two horses bucked restlessly in their positions and neighed with fear, while two Qin soldiers were trying to pacify the horses. The commander pushed from behind and shouted, "Hurry and go. Hurry." A whistle sounded high up in the distance. Tens of millions of flaming arrows shot out of the governor's manor in the center of the city and rained down upon everyone's heads in a fiery downpour. Chen Xing wanted to pull a horse away. He held his shield forward as he ran over, and the commander shouted, "Get in the chariot. Get in the chariot. Don't mind me." Chen Xing jumped onto the chariot. Flaming arrows that blotted out the sky cascaded down like raindrops. The commander was struck, his whole body instantly set ablaze. He cried out in pain, "Help! Help!" So Chen Xing had to look back. He had almost extinguished the fire on the commander's body when the commander pulled the chariot down. Canisters, all of which were filled with oil, started slipping backwards and spilled onto his body, igniting him with a loud rumble. He instantly let out a blood-curdling screech from within the flames. Two soldiers saw that things had gone south, so they quickly turned back to save him, but Chen Xing shouted in a hurry, "He can't be saved anymore. Don't go." Fire broke out everywhere. Chen Xing quickly got on the chariot. He had to drag this chariot with fire canisters away. However, as soon as he sat on the driver's seat, flames started burning along the open-top containers behind him. The two horses that were pulling the chariot were spooked and no longer listened to anyone's instructions. They dragged the chariot with fiercely burning fire canisters forward, and it rushed forth along with Chen Xing, who was driving it. Chen Xing shouted, "North side." Chen Xing yanked on the reins and tried his best to control the direction that the galloping horses dragging the cart were going in. He switched from west to north and instantly rushed through the front line of the battle between the Qin and Jin armies. With a fiery blaze that burned brilliantly, he stormed into the rear camp of the Qin army. "Where's Xiangshu?" Chen Xing looked back and glimpsed disaster. The scene was truly spectacular, with fire canisters spitting flames one after another. People had been scarce along the way. He had just passed through a wall of fire when a small group of cavalrymen shouted in panic, "What are you doing? Where did you come from? Stop! Stop! I want to stop too." Chen Xing looked back and shouted, "But they're not listening to me." Chen Xing looked for his lost horse everywhere, but he didn't expect this flaming chariot to rush onto the main street. All the cavalrymen on patrol had their souls scattered in an instant, and everyone started chasing Chen Xing. Yet no matter how desperately the cavalrymen's war horses were urged, their speed was ultimately limited. On the other hand, the horses dragging Chen Xing's chariot had their butts scorched by fire, so when they galloped, they were doing it at a speed that surpassed their innate potential as horses. It really was true that when one coachman burns the horse, 10,000 cavalrymen would not be able to catch up. They crushed everything below their feet as they rushed through the long street like streaks of lightning as they headed back to the governor's manor in the north. 6 hours ago, after the Qin army breached the inner part of Xiangyang city, they had taken the governor's manor as their first temporary stronghold. They used it as their command post to transport oil vats and arrows, gather troops, and start street battles. As long as the line of defense advanced in an orderly manner, it would be a cinch to seize Xiangyang city within 3 days. At that time, a large number of generals and military councillors of the Qin army were discussing operational logistics within the manor. "We haven't found the whereabouts of Shulakong yet. Must be in the Xiangyang city. The camp is under attack. The camp is under attack." However, this group of commanders ought to suffer the bad luck of 8 lifetimes. Among them were the Prince of Chang'e, Fu Pai, the great General Murong Chui, and General Shi Yu of Zhonglang. The 3 of them were studying a map on the desk. A group of councillors proposed to either burn Xiangyang or defeat the enemy by capturing their leader, and were embroiled in a heated debate. It was too late to set up the Cheval de Frise. The battlefront had already been pushed to the front of Xiaoming platform in the center of the city. Most of the guards who guarded the rear were no different from rabid dogs. They all rushed to the south of the city to fight over obtaining the most number of human heads in order to render meritorious deeds. Who could have imagined that they would get attacked by the enemy at this kind of timing? How audacious! Fu Pai shouted furiously and raised his sword as he prepared to meet the enemy head-on. The 3 main commanders, including Murong Chui and Shi Yu, were all powerful generals who could go up against 100 enemies by themselves. Individual assassins were nothing in their eyes. Who dares attack their camp? What an absolute fool! Murong Chui said, "Where has the enemy gone?" "At the entrance." The messenger cried. He had just spoken when Chen Xing interjected, "Get out of the way. The oil is coming." In the next moment, the flaming chariot made a grand entrance as it rushed into the manor. Murong Chui had just rushed out of the door when he was met face to face with Chen Xing. He thought to himself that a disaster was imminent, and quickly turned around to flee for his life. Chen Xing couldn't care less about who he was going to knock into anymore. He lunged out while he was in the courtyard and jumped into a pond, breaking through the thin layer of ice and hiding in the water. Before he could directly confront the enemy, Fu Pai was knocked down by the chariot. The wheels tripped over the door sill, and all the burning oil vats on the chariot flew into the hall. Chen Xing scrambled to escape and didn't dare look back behind him. He turned around in the midst of the explosions and stumbled out. Within an instant, the entire manor burst into flames that reached as high as 10 meters with a loud blast. Panicked shouts traveled out from the interior as some people started running out. The roof collapsed from the explosions, and the entire cavalry retreated in order to come and rescue people. The Qin army's camp got burned. The Jin army saw the distant scene from the front of Xiaoming platform, and their morale immediately soared. Zhu Su gathered the remaining 8,000 people and killed their way through the main street. Chen Xing took off his helmet and was significantly at a loss as he looked at the scene before him. The Qin army's troops had suddenly suffered a landslide defeat and were all retreating step by step. The place they had lost control over Xiaoming platform, the main street, Lutai Road at the south of the city, and all the streets and alleys were being recaptured by the fierce Jin army who were unafraid of death. Where is he? Chen Xing was becoming impatient. He threw his helmet onto the ground and looked around in a daze. Black smoke billowed and blotted out the sky, and his face had turned filthy black from the smoke. Chen Xing suddenly thought of something. He closed his eyes and stood quietly. All of a sudden, it turned deathly silent. The cries of battle became distant without warning, and there seemed to be a flash of light in the darkness. Another flash. Within the tranquility, Chen Xing suddenly turned around, stepped on the ground, drenched in blood, and quickly turned into an alley. He passed through a residence's backyard and found his war horse. At that moment, the horse was stuck at the door of the courtyard with Xiang Shu, who had been tied to the horse very tightly, on its back. Xiang Shu lay horizontal and constantly bumped into the walls on either side with two heavy thuds as the horse kept trying to get in. End chapter. Dinghai Fusheng Records. Chapter 4. Fallout. 4th year of Taiyuan, February 2nd. Conflagrations in Xiangyang city obscured the sky. A lone mount rushed out of the city, heading south as it broke through the black smoke and ran far, far away. At noon, when the radiant sun was high in the sky, Chen Xing constantly urged his horse to flee Xiangyang, taking Xiang Shu with him as they galloped for nearly 20 miles. Crowds had gathered along the way. South Dangyang Road was packed with commoners fleeing from the calamity with their families. Wails of anguish swept across the land for a moment. The road was so crowded that people could hardly take a step forward, and the cries of those searching for their beloved seemed to go on endlessly. 150 years ago, Guan Yu had besieged Cao Wei's garrison outside the city and drowned his 7 armies, thereby attaining glorious military exploits. Afterwards, my city was lost in defeat, and the route they had taken was exactly this road. Sorrowful cries shook heaven and earth, as if people were attending a memorial for the immortal god of war who lived on the divine land many years ago. Chen Xing was distraught with anxiety. He saw that he couldn't pass through the crowd, so he had resort to walking through a trail instead. After reaching the foot of a mountain, he set Xiang Shu down and untied the layers of rope that Xiang Shu was trussed up in. In an era of war, 9 houses out of 10 were deserted in Jingzhou. People either crossed through the south to Jiaozhai or fled east to Jiankang, Gusu, and other places. Chen Xing passed through the woods and found a small village at the foot of a mountain. In this afternoon where winter and spring alternated, fog gradually rose, and everything was still. It was evident that the village had also gone through a period of disaster. It was in shambles. Poultry and vicious domestic dogs had been taken away. Chen Xing trespassed into 2 houses and saw no one, so he could only try and find some water to drink from the well. He inspected Xiang Shu's complexion again. After a whole night of torment, it was fortunate that he seemed all right. The 12-hour mark was at hand. After the effects of the medicine waned, Xiang Shu's meridians should be able to recover. Chen Xing has to find food for him to eat as soon as possible in order to help him restore his physical strength. This guy's really too skinny. If he was raised better, he'd probably look pretty good. According to the register in Zhu Su's hands, Xiang Shu was 20 years old this year, only 4 years older than Chen Xing. However, there were many people who took wives and had children after their 13th birthday. At his age, people would already be married and have started their careers. Protector, do you feel better? Chen Xing was backlit by the sunlight as he studied Xiang Shu's appearance. Xiang Shu's face was completely blackened from the smoke. He originally had a tall stature, and now he looked just like a savage. However, when Chen Xing looked at himself, he wasn't any better off. After going through all that chaos and turmoil, the 2 of them looked just like 2 beggars now. Chen Xing got some more water and helped Xiang Shu wipe his face. The effect was astounding. Once his face was clean, that pair of eyes amidst Xiang Shu's messy beard were still clear and bright. He had a slim face, thick and black eyelashes, while his eyebrows resembled the sharp edge of a sword. His eyes were as fathomless as the night sky, and the lips under his beard were now rosy because of the effects of the medicine. If he were just slightly tidied up, he would definitely be renowned for his peerless elegance and handsomeness. "My family's protector is so good looking." Chen Xing couldn't help exclaiming, "What a beautiful jade eye!" Also, from head to toe, aside from how he satisfies the Hu people's size standards, features of the Hu people couldn't be seen in his facial features and skin at all. How could he be part of the Hu? Dress him in a scholar's robe and hang an ancient sword by his waist, and he would turn into a 100% beautiful and refined famous scholar, with wooden clogs that tread on wind as he whistled crisply to the moon in the sky. The group of literati in Jiankang would all have to stand aside. Chen Xing, however, didn't really have any requirements for his protector's appearance. Everything was fine as long as his protector could fight. The road ahead of them was long and abundant with thistles and thorns. For someone like him whose only redeeming feature was his good luck and can only rely on God's help in fighting his enemies during a battle, having a protector who was skilled in fighting was of utmost importance. But good-looking men are pleasing to the eye, and one would tend to be in a good mood after often being in the company of one. But God bless me, hopefully the new protector wouldn't be like an embroidered pillow like me. I heard that the emperor of Great Qin, Fujian, is fond of good-looking men. Chen Xing sat under the tree and let Xiangshu use his thigh as a pillow. He casually wiped Xiangshu's neck for him. Previously, he even wanted to raise Murongchang in his palace. "In a few months, we need to find an opportunity to go north to Chang'an, tidy you up a little when the time comes, then rely on your beauty to move him." Xiangshu's fingers twitched slightly. Chen Xing got up and went to the river to wash the cloth. The stream was filled with crushed ice, and the water was so cold the chill penetrated to the bone. No matter if you're a Hu or Han. As long as you don't kill people indiscriminately, then. Before he could finish uttering one sentence, Chen Xing was suddenly slapped on the back of his head, and he fainted. A quarter of an hour later, Chen Xing's face was doused with cold water. He woke up, and realized that he had been stripped of his outer robe. He wore only an unlined garment with a blanket wrapped around him along with the chair he sat on. He had been kidnapped by Xiangshu, then carried out and placed in the backyard. Chen Xing shouted angrily as soon as he woke up, "Is that how you're gonna treat your benefactor?" Xiangshu carelessly went through Chen Xing's belongings one after the other. There was a charcoal stove on the side with a fire that had been started under it. A pot of white porridge was being cooked on the stove. Apparently, it was the last bit of rice found in the farmer's house. "Chen Xing, bastard! Say something!" Xiangshu tossed Chen Xing's dagger back and forth as he glanced at it, fiddled with it briefly, put it aside, then examined his carry-on medicine bag. He didn't recognize all the medicinal items. Chen Xing was wrapped up like a strip worm. He was firmly tied up and unable to move. Xiangshu went to the well to draw a bucket of water. He stripped himself bare without hiding from Chen Xing. In any case, whatever that could be seen had all been seen already anyway. He started washing his hair and taking a bath. After his bath, he faced the water and used Chen Xing's dagger to shave his beard off. "Chen Xing, wait. His beard fell. In less than an hour, Xiangshu had tidied himself up. When he turned around, although he was so skinny that he barely looked human, he still had a handsome face, deep-set and lively eyes, a distinct jawline, and a peerlessly handsome appearance. He sat down in front of the stove and began to eat. Chen Xing's stomach grumbled with a goo. After finishing his porridge, Xiangshu entered a room, rummaged around and found two unlined garments that belonged to the man who owned the house, then changed into them. The man who owned his house was a hunter before he died. Xiangshu took his outdoor hunting clothes and tied his martial sleeves. When he appeared again, although the clothes were a little small on him, he still had a slight majestic air about him. "Chen Xing, he's obviously a Han, How could he be a Hu? Chen Xing actually forgot about everything else for a moment and only thought about this point. Xiang Shu grabbed the bow and arrows of the hunter, bundled up Chen Xing's dagger, robe, and medicine bag. He led the horse over, mounted it, and glanced at Chen Xing with a cold and detached expression. Chen Xing struggled, "Release me. If you leave me tied up here, I'll die." Xiang Shu turned the horse around. Chen Xing was still shouting from behind, "Is it that you don't want to be a protector? If you don't want to, then don't. When did I ever provoke you? I saved your life, and I even had a chance to kill you, but see, I didn't do it." Xiang Shu's back faced Chen Xing. He had spurred the horse into a slow amble, but slowly came to a stop when he suddenly heard those words. He knocked an arrow on his bow and turned slightly towards Chen Xing. "Chen Xing." Immediately afterwards, Xiang Shu's arrow left his bow, and an arrow shot over with a whoosh. Chen Xing closed his eyes, but he felt the ropes around his body loosen. They had been torn by the arrow. "Chia!" Xiang Shu shouted. Xiang Shu rode his horse, turned onto the main road, and left the village. Ai! Chen Xing, dressed only in an unlined garment, ran out, his teeth gritted, "Get back here! Protector! You bastard!" That was Chen Xing's first time hearing Xiang Shu's voice. That Jia was both clear and powerful, and resonated through the air. Chen Xing couldn't help but think, "My family's protector has a really nice voice." Wait, no. A bastard is a bastard. Why did my protector run away? I'm so hungry. Xiang Shu left some food behind. Why don't I just eat first? Chen Xing was starving by now, so he wanted to hurry up and eat before thinking about anything else. I don't even know where that bastard ran off to. How on earth did I ever provoke him? As Chen Xing thought about it, he almost flipped the whole pot of porridge over. Night fell, and the temperature abruptly dropped in the land of Jingzhou. Chen Xing hid in the abandoned house and rummaged around to search for some clothes to wear, but a dog came out of nowhere and started barking at him incessantly. Chen Xing comforted it patiently and fed it after finding some food. After the dog had some sustenance, it seemed to gradually accept the reality of being abandoned by its master and spent this cold night together with Chen Xing. Chen Xing was wrapped in whatever he could cover himself with in this abandoned house, and he hugged the dog as well. He shivered as he said, "It's so cold, how could this happen? The protector chosen by the heart lamp is actually a bastard." Chen Xing lamented in his heart. In this long and cold night, he couldn't help but recall the expectations that reality had completely shattered for him. On the day he left the mountain, he never imagined that things would eventually turn out like this. This was mainly because without exception, every exorcist in history has always had a protector with them. Their purpose was to protect exorcists during their exorcisms and ensure that they wouldn't be disturbed. The protector by the side of the great exorcist who commanded headquarters also had a resounding title, martial god. Today, Chen Xing is the only remaining exorcist in the world, so naturally he was that great exorcist. As for the martial god, the heart lamp had appointed Xiang Shu as his protector. Chen Xing had read many ancient texts and found a silk calligraphy remnant. It was half a piece of the sacrificial ritual written by the protector, Wen Che, for the exorcist, Xin Ping. Xin Ping died while fighting the demonic dragon in Sishui, and Wen Che killed the demonic dragon. After avenging Xin Ping, Wen Che drowned himself by jumping into Si River and was forgotten. In the Han Dynasty, Xie Yuwu, the great exorcist who became the governor of Xinzhou, never married or had children. He was accompanied by General Hu Bai, whose reputation shook the world, as well as the #1 swordsman of Jianghu at that time, Wang Yu, and became the legend of his generation. In even later times, Zhang Liang, the Marquis Lu, became a disciple of Huang Shigong, and was proficient in various arts. As for his protector, the predominant opinions about him were various and conflicting. Some said his protector was Xiao He, while others said it was Han Xian. But when Zhang Liang fled under the pretense of death several years after, Han Xian was trapped and killed by Xiao He and Lu Ho. Historians' criticisms regarding Xiao He were abundant, so most speculated that it was Han Xian. There were also tales that left and right protector martial gods were established respectively in front of the pedestal of the great exorcist in the Han dynasty. While he was half asleep, Chen Xing became immersed in the memory of when his Shifu was on his deathbed. I Upiter is part of your fate, it is everything you'll rely on in your life, and it is the barrier that you'll eventually have to overcome. I Upiter has 100-year cycle and only stays in the human world for 20 years. Once 20 years passes, it'll return to the heavens. Chen Xing followed behind his Shifu, so my good luck will only last until I'm 20. No, far from it. When the time comes, I Upiter will be released from your natal chart. Shifu came to a stop and looked back from within the maple forest. He explained to Chen Xing, under what circumstances will someone lose the ruling star of their life? You should have known the answer to that question long ago, so I won't need to explain further. Chen Xing felt as if he heard the resounding clap of thunder in an instant. I can't live beyond 20. Shifu answered calmly, fate is predetermined by heaven. Everything in this world has its own way of growth and propagation, and everything in this world also has a place they must go to in the end. Heaven has given you this destiny. Why not do something for the divine land within the limited lifespan you have left? Since you had that dream, make a trip down to Xiangyang. You're the great exorcist. Shifu's voice was still echoing in his ears, within your body is the only magical heart lamp that still functions in this world. In this desolate world, within the dark nights where all the stars are hidden, you're the seed of light in the human world. In the next 4 years, you'll have to do everything you can to reclaim the magic in the human world that was lost. Find out why the spiritual chi of heaven and earth dried up. Use your heart lamp to illuminate the vast expanse around you. Of course, if you want to idle away the rest of your time before your 20th birthday, then go find what your Dao is in your short life of 20 years. BA. Go search for it. The next day, Chen Xing plundered the houses nearby and secured some rations. He fed the dog until it was full, then put on a large, floral-patterned jacket meant for the mistress of the house, as well as a pair of men's cotton trousers that he had carelessly tossed on. They could at least help him fight off the cold. Then he left the village and set out. Horse, silver, and his medicine bag had all been snatched by Xiangshu, so he could only travel by foot. He had to go to my city first and think of a way to get some travel expenses to get to Chang'an before considering anything else. When the dog saw that Chen Xing was leaving, it followed along, wagging its tail as it chased after him. When he thought of Xiangshu, Chen Xing he took a deep breath. Xiangshu wasn't even on par with the dog. After receiving just one meal, even the dog would follow him. Forget it. Shifu once said that one shouldn't take too many things to heart. There were many days to come, if they were really destined to be, then that guy probably wouldn't be able to run away. But what if he isn't? Then what's there to be angry about? Nevertheless, less than half a month after leaving the mountain, suffering such great setbacks still made Chen Xing extremely dispirited and downcast. He really couldn't understand where he had gone wrong. While his imagination was running wild, a horse-drawn carriage that was currently being used for fleeing suddenly stopped at the roadside. "Ai! Get on, BA!" Someone shouted at him. "Where are you from?" "Madam said to let you on." Chen Xing. Early in the morning, there were many people who brought their families along as they traveled toward my city in the south. Amongst them, there was no lack of well-to-do families that had escaped from the north. Chen Xing wore a thick flower-patterned jacket and even had a dog following behind him, so he really looked like a stupid son from a landlord's family. Furthermore, he was born good-looking, so people more or less couldn't bear to see him suffer, which was why a convoy slowed down and picked him up along with his dog on the way. This was a family of scholars who escaped from Fan City. The master was in his 50s and had brought his wife and 10-year-old daughter with him. When an old lady in the family, along with her errand servant girls, became aware of the fall of Xiangyang City, she quickly fled southward, preparing to cross my city before going to Changsha County to seek shelter with her relatives. The master was rather old now. He fled in a panic late at night with his family, and after he learned of the suffering of the Han people from wanton massacre, he felt unparalleled sorrow and could barely breathe. He lay on the carriage, unable to move, both his eyes were shut tight and he was on the verge of dying. What happened? Chen Xing thanked the old lady for her help first, then simply explained his origins by saying that he was a scholar from the south. He looked at the master who was half dead and palpated his pulse. After learning about his illness, Chen Xing asked, "Is he sick? Do you have any needles? Lend me one, he'll be fine after a session of moxibustion." The old lady quickly ordered someone to retrieve an embroidery needle. Chen Xing burned it, then applied it to the old man, and sure enough, after 7 needles, the middle-aged man spat out a mouthful of congested blood. He slowly woke up, then cried loudly, "A miracle doctor! Miracle doctor!" Everyone was in a flurry in their haste to thank Chen Xing for saving their master's life. Chen Xing quickly waved his hand with much modesty and was taken to my city like that. Along the way, Chen Xing gave a general overview of his experience of getting robbed by Xiang Shu, and everyone sighed in lament. "You didn't find a bodyguard," the madam said, "you found an ancestor." Public morals degenerate with each passing day. People of today are all degenerate scums na. The old lady continued. "Isn't that right?" Chen Xing felt a bit better after he poured his heart out. These strangers had come together by chance and parted ways in my city. The family put together 42 silvers as a thank you gift, and had given him an extra roast chicken as well. Chen Xing held the heavy silver ingots that weighed about 3 jin and said his farewells to them. "He has money again. Change into another set of clothes first, then change the silver into gold. Otherwise, it would be very uncomfortable for the silver to weigh down heavily in his trousers." Inconvenience was one thing, but carrying such heavy silver around would also make him an easy target to rob. "On the day my mother gave birth to me," Chen Xing said to his dog, "legend has it that I Upiter descended to earth. My luck has been incredibly good ever since I was born. Look, now we have roast chicken to eat ba." Chen Xing divided the roast chicken into half and gave half of it to the dog. He went to look for a public bath first and took a relaxing bath, then went to the garment shop. He was very particular when making a selection and bought a set of new clothes. He suddenly regained his noble gentleman appearance from the makeover. He even bought a small mink jacket for the dog to wear before strutting to the bank. Although my city was quite small at that time, it had all the necessities. As the largest distribution center for the exchange of goods, after Xiangyang was besieged a year ago, businessmen who passed by did business here instead. The Jin army was unable to save Xiangyang, but would be able to retain some self-sufficiency if it held onto my city. News of Xiangyang city's fall was brought to this place by the people who fled south, and all the streets were bustling with refugees and people overnight. The inns, tea houses, and restaurants in the city were all crowded with wealthy people heading south. There was a hubbub of heated discussion. Some were willing to donate money and offered themselves as physical laborers so that the army could fight back, while some felt like this place was ultimately still unsafe, and that it would be better to head south as soon as possible. Everyone was constantly on edge. Go to the bank first to exchange money, then go to the government to sign a customs clearance document, only then would one be able to smoothly go north to Chang'an. The Qin and Jin countries were engaged in war, so customs clearance must be performed with due prudence. Chen Xing, carrying a bundle of silver that weighed 3 jin, entered the bank. The bank was already tidied up and ready to flee. He had just entered the main hall when he suddenly realized that it was absolutely silent inside, and the atmosphere had an inexplicable strangeness to it. "Shopkeeper, I want to change." Chen Xiang abruptly stopped speaking. The mouths of all the shop assistants, shopkeeper, and hired thugs of the bank gaped open, their wrists and ankles were bound by iron rods torn off the bank's windows. As soon as they heard Chen Xiang enter, all of them turned and looked at him with their mouths open. Their chins had all been dislocated, and they had an uncanny resemblance to glowering geese. A man leaned calmly against the cashier's window. With his body turned to the side, his left hand rested on the counter and he wore a set of hunter clothes. It was Xiang Shu. Xiang Shu knocked on the counter with his finger to prompt the shopkeeper to hurry and take the money out. The shopkeeper trembled, and with his mouth open because of his dislocated jaw, used a slide rule to arrange a row of gold ingots for Xiang Shu. He wrapped them up in a small bundle and signaled to Chen Xiang to run with a panicked gaze. Xiang Shu turned his head slightly to the side when he heard the noise, and the two of them looked at each other. A group of Jin soldiers passed by outside the door. Chen Xiang decisively roared, "Help! Someone's robbing the bank." End chapter.